It's my pleasure to welcome you to this Zoom discussion. If you can comfortably put your cameras on so we can see who's here, that's great. If you are unable to do so, that's also fine. We don't mandate it for students, we don't tell them they have to have their cameras on, but as many of you may know, if you're on Zoom calls all day long, it makes a big difference to actually see smiling faces and know who you're talking to. So it's great to see you. I really am delighted to welcome you. For those that I have not yet met, my name is Ian Solomon, and I am the Dean of the Batten School. It is a privilege to be your child's dean. And indeed, it's a privilege for me to be at the University of Virginia and to be part of the Batten School and to be part of this wonderful team that you will get to meet shortly of staff and faculty that we have here at the Batten School. And I hope you know by now, and I hope you feel and agree that your child is part of a very special community within the University of Virginia. And whether they are enrolled at Batten as an undergraduate major in public policy and leadership, or if they're receiving their Master of Public Policy, their MPP degree, whether they spent last year online or were here in person, I really do hope that you know that we take our sense of community very seriously. We're small, we are intense, we are defined by a strong commitment to public service and the public good, by a commitment to evidence-based decision-making, by rigorous academic programs and high personal and professional expectations. We aspire to stretch your kids, to nudge them out of their comfort zone, to help them become the very best versions of themselves, capable of more than they ever thought was possible. And we will push them to be more analytical, to communicate more effectively, to ask harder questions, to be willing to listen more generously to other people, including others with whom they may disagree, to be more curious, more humble, more purposeful. And yet, even as we challenge them, the Batten School is also a nurturing environment. And I hope you've observed how students receive a lot of individual attention from staff and faculty alike, all of whom are really committed to their success. And I tell students frequently that there is a lot of love for them in our building here at Garrett Hall. There's also a lot of care and intentionality about their education, their classes. I've been associated with several wonderful educational institutions in my life, and yet I've never been in a place that took its teaching obligations as seriously as we do here. We have groundbreaking, cutting-edge scholars on the faculty making major research contributions and contributions to the practice of public policy, but there are also all of them outstanding teachers in the classroom and wonderful mentors. So today you'll meet some of the leadership team of the Batten School. My job as dean is to oversee the operations of the school. I like to think of myself with many star players. I also work hard to make sure we are raising the resources that we need to provide scholarships for students and to continue to be cutting edge and innovative in our teaching and our research. So I appreciate you for tuning in today, and I look forward to getting to know you better. Most importantly, to getting to know your children better. It's been wonderful to get to know some of them quite well if they were here last year or in the early part of this year. And there are still many that I've not yet spent any time with in person. I hope we can remedy that this semester. Our success as a school is measured in the long-term success of our students and alumni, of your children. That's what gets me up every morning, to help them learn to thrive and to help them learn to make a positive difference. I thought I might share just a few photos of the early weeks of school. So bear with me while I share my screen. Hopefully you'll find these as fun to look at as I do. Some you'll be familiar with, of course. By now, I think you probably have seen the lawn at UVA and the beautiful rotunda. And here's another picture. And I'm fortunate that as the dean of the Batten School, I actually live in Pavilion X that I marked on this picture. And I have the shortest commute of anyone I know because I work out of Garrett Hall, which is where I sit right now, as you can see on the map there. Another image is this image. You could see the amphitheater you might be familiar with. And that's Pavilion 10 where I live. And I will be doing many more events in my garden this year, and hopefully I will have a chance to dine with your children, either inside once it's safe to do so, or outside in the garden. And here, of course, is Garrett Hall. And just to give you a sense of the vibrancy that's come back with students being on grounds, here was an activity fair in the amphitheater. You can see just the students. And for me, having joined just a few months before the pandemic, I had missed a lot of this. And this was my first time seeing some of this, and it really has been just joyful. We're also putting our great hall to great use. This was one of the orientation programs, and Dean and Professor Jay Shimshak, who's on this call, you can see him there up front giving a bit of an orientation. You can see students in breakout rooms, getting ready for a scavenger hunt. There's a team excited to go. And you'll see at the top of this picture an orange cushion and a purple cushion. Those are actually part of our lounge, student lounge we have, and students are in there most of the day and night studying and working together. But really trying to also do a lot outdoors. So here's some of our orientation programs, outdoors. Also a class with Professor Paul Martin next to the rotunda. Events we did at Vineyards to try to build community and create a strong sense of knowing one another and being part of this adventure together with, very intense athletic events like cornhole and other team building activities. Students had a great time, and hopefully you've heard from some of your students about your children, about how they feel things are going. We're quite thrilled this year with great leadership of Batten Builds, and I don't know if they're on the call right now, but we have a couple of, I think Ned Flanagan and Irene Perry's parents may be here. They were active at helping to plan some of our great public service activities. This is at the Haven, a nearby day shelter, preparing food, Ronald McDonald House, lots of activities. Again, learning about Charlottesville, committing to some public service to help the community, getting to know one another, and bringing back what they learn, what they know, and how they care back to Garrett Hall, where we do most of our work in our classes. So what I'd like to do is create some space for each of my colleagues on the phone, or most of my colleagues who are on this call now, to talk a little bit about their work, and then we will open this up for questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you'd rather just send them directly to Jeff Egling, that would also be fine. But I'll quickly go around and we'll just point out who's here and they can wave, and then a few of them will actually talk a little bit. So first, I will point to Jill Rockwell, our Senior Assistant Dean for Student and Career Services, who is here. And Jill, maybe you can wave. We have Amanda Crombie, the Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs. We have Jay Shimshak, our Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and a Professor of Public Policy. Ann Carter Mulligan, the Director of Undergraduate Admissions. Erin Torre, Director of Communications. Craig Lindquist, Associate Dean for Administration. Jeff Egling, Executive Director of the Batten School Foundation. On the foundation and the development team, we also have Jesse Burgett, who's been helping to get this event scheduled, and Greer Kelly as well. If I've missed anybody, I apologize. It's hard to see on Zoom. But I will invite my colleagues to say a little bit about what they do, and then we can have a broader conversation. So I will start off by handing this off to Dean Rockwell.
Thank you, Dean Solomon, and it's nice to meet all of you virtually, and we look forward to the chance to meeting with you in person eventually. As Ian said, my name is Jill Rockwell. I'm part of a 4-person team at the Batten School that is responsible for student and career services. We bring to the school a diverse set of experience. I was a journalism major back in the day and then practiced law in Chicago. Our career services director is an engineer and former Air Force colonel, and our 2 assistant directors have advanced degrees in education and counseling. So we like to tell students there's a little something, if they don't, they usually we like to think they like all of us, but if there's plenty of people for them to meet, and plenty of different types of experiences for them to learn about from our own personal experience, and of course all the employers and alums that we host as well. Our school is relatively unique in combining student and career services under one umbrella. We do that because we recognize that student wellness and engagement is at the core of a successful internship and job search. And on the flip side, students who might be struggling with those services often need extra personal support as well. And so working together, we feel like we support our students from a really holistic and important perspective. On the student services front, our office's goal is to work hand in hand with our BA and our MPP students to offer meaningful leadership and service-related co-curricular opportunities that strengthen what we believe is a really signature Batten student experience. We also host a really traditionally beautiful graduation ceremony at Ashland Highland. And while that was paused for the last 2 years, we're very hopeful that this tradition can resume this spring. And again, that we'll get to meet you in person and celebrate your students' achievements in May. Some programs of note, as Dean Solomon mentioned, just over 2 weeks ago, our students hosted Batten Builds, which was our 13th annual day of service. It's our official start to the school year and sets an important message about the importance of engagement and giving back to the communities that are directly in our backyard, and also to getting to know the people the people behind the policies that our students will be researching. And again, this is an event that was spearheaded by a number of our undergraduate students. We're really thankful for their effort in hosting the largest Batten Builds to date. Right now, a lot of our students are downstairs in the Garrett Hall having pizza and mingling with our student leaders at our annual Batten Student Activities Fair. On the career services front, we are really pleased that we have some of the best employment outcomes of any of our peer schools. And that is not only our peer schools at UVA, but also our peer public policy schools across America. And while our career services team would like to take credit for this, we do not, because we know that the real credit goes to our students and to the families who raise them, and also to our admissions team for selecting such remarkable students who are in incredibly high demand by employers. They are really in demand across the sectors and through advising, one-on-one advising and career counseling, and also a lot of programming that puts them in touch with employers and alumni. We expose to them the truly vast world of opportunities that are waiting for them. Our employment data, which I'm happy to delve into more deeply at the end during Q&A, reflects that our students secure positions across the sectors, from nonprofit positions to jobs in local, state, and federal employment, overseas, and a number of our BAs will go on to professional school or other graduate programs. We understand that this is a very stressful time for our students. Regardless of a pandemic, the first professional job search is a stressful time, but we're really happy to report that more than 80% of our recent grads in the class of 2021 have already secured a first destination. So things are actually looking really good. This is a number that is consistent with pre-COVID numbers. And 91% of our students secured jobs within 6 months of graduation from the class of 2020, which I think is pretty remarkable. And again, says a lot about the type of students that graduate from the Batten School. And indeed the training that you'll hear about that they receive in the classroom. We like to call the Batten community a Batten family, and it sounds sort of cliched, but it's something that we really believe in because we really are a small, tight-knit group that supports each other, both in and out of the classroom. And so by extension, you're a part of that Batten family. So I would just like to say welcome and thank you for sharing your children with us. And we look forward to seeing you in person. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Amanda Crombie.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Crombie. I am the Assistant Dean for Academic Programs at the Batten School. I have been at Batten about 8 years, and I've been at the university almost 20. I like to tell everybody I started when I was 10, and I keep backing that number back as we go. Ultimately, I started here at the Batten School because I wanted to be a part of a fresh new school that was bringing about change makers and bringing students into the classroom and allowing them to learn and flourish and grow, and also then move on into the world and do great things and be change makers within our world. I am a part of a team of 4 professional student advisors here at Batten, and we work not only with our BA and MPP students to make sure that they have the advising that they need for courses and everything else, but our faculty as students have either success or challenges in the classrooms, and making sure that everybody's working together to really build out that Batten family that Dean Rockwell mentioned. I guess first I should say our roughly 50 teaching faculty and our 20 very active affiliate faculty members, as well as the other members of my team on the academic advising front, send their greetings. Everybody is thrilled to be back in person. We've spent a great deal of time preparing for your students to be back in the classroom full time, and have been excited to welcome them back to both grounds and to Garrett Hall. The faculty are delighted to have students back in class. The Zoom reality was something that we dealt with for the last 18 months, but the ability to be back in the classroom and actually seeing people's faces, though masked and sitting distanced from the faculty member particularly, but ultimately it allows having that vibrant experience that Dean Solomon mentioned, both in Garrett Hall, but also in the classroom. And we're absolutely thrilled. I can say that ultimately there's nothing more energizing than engaging with your students around either their policy area of interest, what it is that they're interested in doing in the future, and how we're going to plan and prepare them for moving on into that job search role. Ultimately, every day here at Batten is a reminder of the importance of what we do. And it's particularly an easy time to remember that need for knowledge to solve the world's most pressing public policy problems, and to educate the next generation of ethical and effective leaders to solve problems in that diverse and divided world that we live, is so critically important. And I think it's one of the main reasons why any number of my colleagues on this call get up every morning and come into Batten, but also why your students chose this school and why it is that we are successful in providing the world with change makers. It's also just thrilling and fabulous to get to know your students. Our academic advising team continues to support your students in classes, but also, as I mentioned, as they plan their path forward in Batten, but plot a course after Batten, and allow them to prepare for their time as they leave grounds. Our faculty are working hard to connect with students individually and in small groups, as well as socially distanced office hours and outdoors, informally across grounds, and even virtually, because there's still some students who would prefer to do a Zoom meeting, because they can go in, they can come out, they can get quick answers. And sometimes it's just, there are things we've learned with Zoom that have allowed us to continue using this model for certain portions of things, even when we're back in the classroom full time. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Associate Dean Jay Shimshak, and I will let him talk a little bit about what our faculty are up to.
Thank you, Amanda. And hi, everyone. Great to see you. I'm Jay Shimshak. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the Batten School. I wear two hats. So I wear an administrative hat, which means I work with Dean Solomon, Dean Crombie, our full faculty and our staff to oversee teaching, research, service, and engagement with the practice of leadership and public policy at the Batten School. And second, and perhaps more importantly from your perspective, and typically from my perspective as well, I'm a faculty member who has the opportunity to teach many of your students economics for public policy. It's one of the great honors of my life. I thought it may be useful, in addition to what Joe and Amanda have communicated, to just let you know that our faculty, in addition to being world-class teachers, also continue to stand out as world-class scholars and public engagement professionals. So far in 2021 alone, and this is a highly selected list, Professor John Holbein was selected as the recipient of the Jefferson Trust Award for Early Career Excellence. Professor Kirsten Gelsdorf was selected as a recipient of the UVA Excellence in Public Interest Research Award. Professor Christine Mahoney was selected as the recipient of the university's Public Impact Focused Research Award. All three of these awards recognize researchers whose work helps to improve lives and serve society. Professors Gabe Adams and Ben Converse co-authored the lead article in the extremely prestigious journal Nature. Their paper on decision-making for leadership was covered by hundreds of media outlets worldwide and made quite a splash. Professor Chris Room continues to change our national conversation on opioid addiction. Professor Craig Volden and his colleagues at the Center for Effective Lawmaking released a new member guide that offers advice to new members of Congress on how to start their careers and build towards being effective and transformational lawmakers. Professor Brian Williams was appointed as the co-founding editor of the Journal of Social Equity and Public Administration. He continues to promote pioneering conversations between police and their local communities. Professor Sebastian Tello Trio joined Professors Mbiti, Room, and Turner as a member of the very prestigious National Bureau of Economics Research, which is the country's leading institution for economic policy analysis. Our 5 research and public engagement centers addressing global policy, national security, effective lawmaking, education policy, and social innovation continue to develop partnerships with your students for high impact research and making a difference in the real world. I could go on, and I genuinely could, and I often do, but you get the idea. We have an extraordinary group that is extraordinarily committed to making a difference in the world, but also teaching your students. So with that, let me turn it over to Ann Carter Mulligan, who is our Director of Undergraduate Admissions. Ann, take it away.
Thank you, Jay. Good afternoon, everyone. As Jay mentioned, my name is Ann Carter Mulligan. I'm Director of Undergraduate Admissions. I've been at this school for about 3 years. Prior to that, I worked for a decade at the Miller Center at UVA, like Dean Crombie, beginning when I was 10, and also in enrollment management at Longwood University. I oversee recruitment into the Bachelor of Arts and the Accelerated Master of Public Policy programs. Our admissions efforts are rounded out by my colleague, Jeff Chittister, who passes along his regrets that he cannot be here today. He recruits into our postgraduate MPP program, as well as our Assistant Director, Courtney Licensnider, who, among other things, oversees admission into our Public Policy and Leadership minor. So we're a pretty small but mighty team. And though our primary interactions with your students were really in the lead up to their admission last year, we continue to work with them to recruit the next generation of talented leaders to the school. I can say definitively that they are a wonderful group of citizens and ambassadors for our programs. I am continually blown away by their propensity to pay it forward, whether it's offering help at an application workshop or serving on a student panel to talk about their own experiences at Batten and their professional goals. Really, they work hard on behalf of the school to show others the pathway to Batten. Every day, they contribute to their community through acts of public service, student governance, and academic expertise. So in any given year, we have as many as twice the number of applicants or 2/3 as many applicants as we can accommodate in our programs, and those numbers are growing. Applications into our postgraduate program, for example, were up 87% last year, certainly in part due to the pandemic, but all of the programs are showing steady growth year over year. So it's really not easy to get into Batten. But I'd say what unites applicants and admitted students alike is their sense of purpose and their intention to create that impactful, lasting change that my colleagues have mentioned. So our charge each year is to really open the door so that talented, diverse new students can find their way to the school. I like to echo Dean Solomon when I say that we work hard to recruit students into our programs who reflect the world we wish to serve. This is, of course, not without its challenges. As we've enrolled greater numbers of first generation and low income students, the financial need of our classes has grown. But we're certainly continually seeking out new ways to support these students who share Batten's vision, because that really the challenges facing our world are matched only by their tremendous capacity to solve those problems and meet those challenges. So I'm available to you, and I can speak for my admissions colleagues in saying our doors are always open if we can be helpful to you in any way. Like Dean Rockwell said, thank you for sharing your wonderful students with us. If you know any more like them, send them to me. I'd love to chat with them. And if you have any ideas about how we can better resource students along the way, we certainly welcome those thoughts as well. I'm going to pass the baton to my talented colleague, Erin Torre, who is our Director of Communications.
Thank you, Anne. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to get to connect with you. And thank you for all that you have done to shape your children into the wonderful people that they are. It is a real pleasure and honestly the best part of my job, just getting to work with our talented students at the Batten School. As Anne mentioned, my name is Erin Torre. I'm the Director of Communications at the Batten School. Prior to joining Batten about 3.5 years ago, I worked as the press director of the Peace Corps in Washington, D.C. and led communications for Michelle Obama's Let Girls Learn program through the Peace Corps. I then did communications for Mayor Muriel Bowser in D.C. Before moving to Charlottesville and joining Batten. So a career in public service communications that I am happy to continue here at the University of Virginia. Our communications team works within the school's Office of External Affairs to oversee all facets of strategic communications. So that includes media relations, news and editorial, social media, messaging, design, production, web content, campaigns, branding, advertising. So really those external pieces that you see coming from the Batten School. And it is really our privilege to get to tell the remarkable and evolving story of the Batten School, including stories of the individuals that make up our Batten family, like your children. It's important that we tell, very important to me and to my colleagues, that we tell the authentic story of the Batten experience. And there's no one better positioned to do that than your children, our students. So my office works very closely with our student organizations and individual students to showcase what the Batten student experience is really like. Follow us on social media if you want to see what our students are up to. My personal favorite is our Instagram stories. We often do student takeovers, so you really get to see a day in the life, and it's a lot of fun. And finally, I encourage you to stay up to date with Batten news and events through our newsletters. I will paste our subscribe link in the chat. And if you subscribe to Batten News, you'll get a link to our online Batten merch sale launching this week, which I know some students and their parents have been eagerly awaiting. So I'll put that link in the chat, and please feel free to reach out to me should you need anything or have any questions or just want to talk. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Craig Lindquist.
Thanks, Erin. Hello, everyone. So great to see you today. My name is Craig Lindquist. I'm the Associate Dean for Administration here at the Batten School. And our team, among other things, works to provide a safe, clean, and conducive learning and working environment for our students and faculty here at the school. And I'm sure, as you can tell, we are all just so thrilled to have our students back on grounds and in the classroom this year. We do continue working with other teams across UVA to closely monitor COVID caseloads on grounds and plan for contingencies while it appears that the Delta variant is currently peaking in the central Virginia area. And while we remain ready to adjust if the situation becomes more challenging, we're actually quite optimistic about continuing our current in-person, in-classroom operations. As the COVID cases on ground actually remain relatively low. And that's really largely due to the extremely high vaccination rates we have on grounds. It's upwards of 95% for students, faculty, and staff. So that really puts us in a good position to continue this year. So anyway, thank you again for joining us. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jeff Egling, who's our Executive Director of the Batten School Foundation. Jeff.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us today. It's exciting to be with you as well and talk just a little bit about the school. You've heard from Dean Solomon and from Anne and some others, both just how excited we are to have everyone back in Charlottesville, but also talk a little bit about the ways we provide support. And the areas that I focus on supporting our students, our faculty, our staff, and the rest of the school is via philanthropy. And so my team and I spend, particularly in less pandemic times, quite a bit of time on the road in airplanes and things of that nature, flying out to meet with friends of the school, parents, alumni, and developing what we hope are lifelong relationships with the Batten School. And the ways that folks tend to engage with us is coming back to grounds, is seeing us when we have regional events in your areas. And for those in a position to do so, is providing fiscal resources that go back to helping students. Anne mentioned a little bit about resources for scholarships for students to attend the Batten School, make it affordable. We spent a lot of time focusing on underwriting our internship program, a lot of which your students may well take advantage of. We help provide financial resources there. We also help our faculty obtain the resources needed to do, the high levels of research and engagement that they bring to both our school and the community and the country at large. So super excited to have this introductory call for some of you that I haven't had a chance to meet. For those of you who I have seen before, great to see you again. We are back on the road a bit. So if we do reach out, we hope we'll have a chance to have a cup of coffee. We're anxious to get your feedback on the program to figure out who in your networks might be interested in engaging with the Batten School. As a new school, we're constantly working really tirelessly to expand our reach and our overall engagement of folks who are as passionate about this work as we are. I stand between you and the opportunity to ask Dean Solomon and others questions. So I will sign off at this point, but if you do have questions and want to send them anonymously, I'm happy to answer them for you. Otherwise, I think Ian just mentioned in the chat, you can go ahead and post or raise your hand and we will call in. And thanks so much again for being here. And Ian, I actually have a question that was submitted ahead of time, if I might.
Perfect. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. All right. I will leave it anonymous. I have a daughter who is a fourth-year student at Batten. Can you please address at the parent meeting what career advice and services are offered for students? It has been strange for her to imagine a career in the midst of the pandemic, but also difficult for her because she's really not sure what she wants to do or is best suited for her after graduation. Jill Rockwell maybe would start that off and we can kick it around from there.
Sure, I would, and I know my colleague Steve would want me to also really encourage your students, all of your students, to come and visit with us one-on-one for appointments. We are all located upstairs in Garrett Hall. We also see people via Zoom. So having a personal one-on-one advising appointment is one important aspect. We also, as I mentioned, do a lot of employer visits and virtual and programs, both in person and virtual programs with employers, to educate students about the different types of opportunities that are available, and then actually to provide them with specific exposure to employers, from everything from national security to Peace Corps, Teach for America, the GAO, all types of jobs. This starts at orientation. They've already had a chance to meet with alums representing all the different sectors. We also have a weekly newsletter that is called Frankly Speaking. It's an acronym named in honor of our late founder, Frank Batten. And Frankly Speaking is something I would absolutely encourage students to read as well. A lot of times students graduate and say, oh, we didn't realize that those were actually jobs that you were pulling specifically for us. We just thought it was sort of an auto-populated message, but it's something that we have folks spending a lot of time looking through all kinds of databases for job search, for jobs that are appropriate for policy students. And so I would encourage your children to read the Frankly Speakings as well. And we, on a daily basis, are connecting students with employers and alumni and different mentors who just want to learn more and do informational interviews. So there's really a whole host of ways that students can find out what the jobs are like and what the substantive areas, what it's like to practice in a substantive area of policy. So I hope she will come find us.
This would be a shameless plug here as well, but we often find times there are parents that work in and around the industries our students care about. So when I'm on the road making those connections, one of the first things I ask families that I meet with that are looking to get engaged is do you have the capacity to hire an intern? Our students love internship experiences. They're critical to our experience. And so if you do have those, don't ever hesitate to reach out in your organizations. Jill just answered the question about graduation. Jill, might you say that out loud? There was a question about has the date for graduation been set yet?
So graduation weekend from the university standpoint has been set for May 20th to May 22nd. If things are normal, fingers crossed, we typically hold our Batten specific event for both BAs and MPPs on that Saturday evening. And our lawn ceremony for the entire school and other schools will typically take place on that Sunday. So people tend to come for the whole weekend, but our event, if things hold true, our event would take place on that Saturday night, our specific school event. And then the larger lawn ceremony for our school and others would take place on that Sunday, the 22nd.
Other questions or comments or observations you'd like to share? You know how to reach us. Last year I need to change the hotel reservations. I think this year remains still a little bit in flux in terms of precise dates. I think the plan for the university is to make some final decisions on dates and to announce them in October of this year. So I would not make any unchangeable reservations until you've gotten more concrete information from the university about the precise schedule of events. But I do know it is challenging to get hotels here, so I appreciate just
very competitive. It's very competitive.
I will say last year was definitely the unusual year. We usually are not the first to go, and honestly, it was sort of flattering. The University Major Events Office said our school was on the first day with a couple other schools because they knew our students would follow the rules, would be set a good standard. And so they said it was intentional that the Batten students and in nursing and medicine, they said that was by design. We knew all your students would follow the rules. And so we wanted to start off by setting a good example. So that was sort of nice. But
where did you say you do your Batten only event on Saturday?
We have historically done it at Monroe's historic property.
At Ashland?
Ashland, right.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
I just had a comment. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Joelle Kime, and my daughter is Paulina Kime. I saw you, Dean Solomon, when I was helping her move into the range this summer, so it was great to see you. But first, all I really wanted to say was thank you all so much for developing such a strong Batten family. I don't know exactly who said that, but it definitely is something that I know our daughter Paulina has relayed to us, and we as parents, my husband and I, we feel that as well. And that's been critical, absolutely critical, especially in light of what we've all gone through with the pandemic. And you also have worked really hard to keep the students engaged and help them experience as normal as possible, a college experience in these really incredibly extenuating circumstances. So I mean, we all have friends and family that have children in other, at other schools and other programs within UVA. And I think Batten has gone above and beyond. So I really appreciate that. I recognize that. My husband and I both do. And I can tell you that other parents talk to us and they're envious. So you've taken advantage of the lawn and, just larger group spaces to get together, even when times were really, really tough. And I know Paulina has appreciated that so much. So thank you so much. That was just my comment. And I think you all should understand and know how much the parents appreciate that.
Well, thank you for saying that, Joelle. It's been great to get to know Polly, and also she's a great example of students taking initiative and leading on things and creating kind of a whole course for the Model UN program based on her passion and an initiative and finding a faculty member to lead that. So it's we do this because we love seeing students take that initiative and demonstrate leadership while they're and exercise leadership while they are here as Batten students. And if you have other ideas of things we should do, we welcome ideas. We've been, there was not a roadmap for any of us about how to get through this past period, and we're not completely out of the woods yet. So if there are ideas or best practices you hear about from your organizations or other places that you affiliate with, we'd be open to them. And certainly we get a lot of great ideas from your children as students here. So we're grateful for that. I do see a question about dealing with different political or policy views and having a balanced program. It's a great point. I think that we are training public policy professionals, which means part of what the skill set required is the capacity to evaluate different potential solutions, to engage with people with different policy or political objectives and priorities and values. And I think it's part of our work is getting people prepared to engage with ideas they might disagree with and people they might disagree with, and to assess solutions from an evidence-based perspective. Let's define the criteria we want to evaluate, and let's see which solution is best capable of achieving our policy objectives based on that criteria. Part of the way we do that is by making sure that we reinforce this evidence-based approach to decision-making and bringing in a diversity of voices as speakers, as students, trying to model, speaking for myself and most of my colleagues here, trying to model that sort of attitude and approach to solving problems, making sure that, when we bring in members of the Virginia delegation to class, or bringing in all sides to the delegation. And I think you'll hear from your students that we do a pretty good job of this. So I think the degrees of polarization are strong across our culture, across our country, and perhaps globally at this point. So it's an ongoing effort from all of us here to make sure we're doing our job to train people who can engage with a diversity of views, viewpoints, and solutions. Again, there too, always welcome suggestions as we work to, again, best prepare the leadership we need for this country and for the world. Welcome other questions if there are any.
I had a comment.
Yes.
I'm Jackie Abbey, and I'm the mother of a 4th year. And I just wanted to say that your parent orientation in 2018 was really effective in that you were able to communicate exactly the type of students you were looking for and why. And after that, I kept my enthusiasm for Batten in check, lest I my child redirect just because mom wanted it. But when she became a sophomore and by then had become the type of student, my daughter is Natalie Abbey, and she's very active in racial reconciliation and very passionate about it. I could say to her, hey, just so you know, this is what Batten is looking for. You might want to think about that. She makes her own choices, but because I just knew what you had told me, it was really helpful. So really appreciate that and your time, taking the time to talk to students or talk to parents during orientation and such clear communication.
Great. Well, we want students to make the right choice in coming here, right? It's not a program for everybody. It's an intense program, requires a courage to tackle quantitatively rigorous and qualitatively rigorous stuff simultaneously. It requires, I think, a commitment to want to engage on issues of public concern. So whereas we want to, make sure everyone knows about what we do, we want to really do our best to help them make the right choice. And there are many great majors here at UVA. We do a lot of collaboration and have minors and double majors with many of them. So whatever we can do to really help students choose wisely for this stage of their education. And then if many will go off to other degrees after this as well, and really help them make the best choices for them. So we appreciate the feedback and know that we put a lot of thought into those information sessions. We have a question about whether Batten BAs can go on into the MPP program. Amanda, you want to tackle the requirements there?
Sure, happy to start, and then Anne, if there's anything that you would like to add. The Batten BA program is not a major that we allow students to move into the accelerated master's program. We do allow students from the Batten BA program, once they complete the BA program, to move into the master's program separately. However, the accelerated master's program requires an undergraduate degree from outside of the Batten School, a different major and a different kind of area of focus. That's a portion of things that actually came when we originally developed the undergraduate major as a portion of the school when we already had the accelerated master's program, was that we were not we were not allowed to bring in students from the BA program into the accelerated master's program. And that students had to choose a major from another portion of the university. Even as we have continued and asked questions about that requirement, it's been one of our faculty's opinion across the board every time I've asked the question about if a BA student moving into the accelerated master's program, how heavily those two programs would overlap. And the real goal is to have students have the ability to have a separate undergraduate major so that they have a substantive area or a different focus area for their undergrad. And then they build upon that with the policy and the MPP through the accelerated master's program. We have had students who completed the BA program, were gone for a couple of years and went on and did work and then came back and did the postgraduate master's program, but it hasn't been many. So that's the answer. And yes, it is true that a BA cannot go on into the accelerated master's program.
I can add just, there is one kind of flight path from the BA program to the accelerated program, and that is to essentially transfer back to a college major at some point after your first year in the BA, or when you decide that, oh my gosh, I love this coursework, my professional goals have become more clear, I know that I would be better suited by a graduate degree. You can transfer back to the college and then apply anew to the accelerated MPP program and move forward that way. I would say in any given year, we probably have about 5 students, maybe 5 to 7 students who successfully do that.
Great, thank you, Amanda and Anne. Any more questions? Well, feel free to reach out to us at any time. I want to thank you for, is there another question there? Do you recommend a law degree in public policy? I think that would depend on the individual student and their interests. As a lawyer myself, you know, there are many cases where it could make good sense and many cases where it may not be the optimal degree. I'll tell you that Dean Rockwell and I spend quite a lot of time counseling students about law degrees. You know, there are a lot of, right now is a very popular time to be applying to law school. So I think the interest level is higher than it may be in other years. And I'm happy, you know, Jim, to talk to your child about their interest in that and connect them to colleagues in the law school so they can really make the right choice for themselves as an individual.
Yeah, he's grown up with lawyers. His aunt is on the federal court. So he weighs, you know, his interest in foreign policy, environmental law, as well as public policy. He's thinking of merging all 3 of his interests together.
It would certainly not be unusual for him to be applying to law school.
We have a program that is in the works, a specific program just for Batten students about using law and public policy and what you need a law degree to work in the legal field. And so encourage him to come to that as well. But yes, we've been doing a lot of pre-law advising these days.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your care and attention. Thank you for the privilege of allowing us to work with your children. Thank you for your support, firstly, as parents of our wonderful students, Secondly, as engaged members of our community and coming to events either online or things we might do in cities where you live. And finally, if you are in a position to support the Batten School financially, we want to thank you for your philanthropy to Batten and UVA more broadly. We're particularly focused on providing greater support for financial aid. Or if you work for an organization that may be seeking to hire interns or employees with the skills of Batten students, we welcome your contacts and support there as well. Look forward to being in touch with you, seeing many of you at graduation, if not before. As some know, you might see my dog on the lawn. He's very friendly, and look forward to a great year with your children. So thanks so much.